And in education, the Lagos state government has approved a harmonized academic calendar for all public and private primary and secondary schools for the 2026-2027 academic session. The Commissioner for Basic and Secondary Education, Jamiu Ali Balogun, announced the decision in a statement published on the Lagos state government's official X handle. The harmonized calendar aligns public and private schools under a single academic schedule, replacing the previous system in which schools operate different calendars. According to the Commissioner, the calendar was finalized after consultations with education stakeholders coordinated by the Office of Education Quality Assurance. The 2026-2027 academic session will begin on Monday, September the 14th, 2026. The first term will end on December the 18th, followed by a Christmas break until January the 8th, 2027. The second term will run from January 11th to 16th, while the third term will begin on May the 3rd and end on July the 30th, with the long vacation starting on August the 2nd. You're still watching the media news right here on Voice of the People television. We'll go straight to the analysis segment of the news. And joining us now to make sense of these stories and more is Mr. Folaranmi Ajayi. He's an educationist and unstable. He would be a public and political affairs analyst and commentator. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Folaranmi Ajayi. And thank you so very much for joining the conversation this afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you so very much for joining the conversation. Now, let us start off from this story that, of course, just was read out a couple of seconds ago. And I'm talking about the Lagos State Education Board approving the Harmonized School Calendar. What do you make of that, really? And then what do you see as a major setback with these harmonized calendar? Because this, again, is a conversation that is ongoing, and a lot of persons are kind of finding it a bit difficult to understand why the government is going this direction. What's your position with this as well?
Yes, good afternoon, and it's quite an opportunity to be doing this again, to be doing this again with you. Now, so let's begin. Let me start by saying that, yes, the harmonization of this academic calendar, one, will bring uniformity. Public and private schools will now operate on the same academic timetable. That is what the Lagos state government is trying to say. And I will now say another thing it will bring is regulation. So which means that we are going to have stronger government oversight of private school. The government is now showing more concern in what is happening within the private schools across the state. The third is that parents, there will be what we call easier planning for families with children in different schools. Now, another is examination. For me, I believe that there will be better alignment with national examination agenda across the nation. And finally, implementation. So whether the elite and international schools will fully comply or seek exemption, it is now their own. But for me, these are the priorities, and I see reasons why the Lagos state is trying to harmonize both private and public schools together.
Okay, now still staying with you, and this is becoming quite interesting, because you did say that this indicates that the government is showing major concerns about what's going on in the private schools. And we're talking about schools that they did not fund. And I'm talking about schools that have different syllabus from what we have within this Lagos state government. What do you think would be the aftermath effect of all of this? Because if you look at it critically, even across the state, there are still schools, and I dare say public schools, that are underfunded. Now you are trying to harmonize a calendar with a school that is fully funded, privately owned, and is doing better as against what you are supposed to do. Isn't this putting the cart before the horse?
Okay, so the challenge of education across Nigeria has always been funding. If we agree, funding has been one of our critical issues that we have yet to find a lasting solution to solve. But as it is, now from an education policy perspective, let me say that harmonizing the academic calendar is not without risk. While it offers uniformity, underfunded schools, especially low-cost private schools and many public schools, may bear the greatest burden. Now, why am I saying that they will bear the greatest burden? Because one, it will reduce what I call flexibility for struggling schools. Now, many underfunded schools across the states will adjust their calendar to recover from these disruptions, such as teacher strikes, flooding, delayed fee payments, or infrastructure challenges. Now, a fixed state calendar removes that flexibility, leaving them with less time to compete or complete the curriculum. Another reason is that increased financial pressure. Now, low fee, we call them local schools. Low fee private schools depend almost entirely on school fees. If they are compelled to close during the same holidays, they may face cash flow problems, making it difficult to pay staff salaries or maintain operation during these operation breaks. Another thing that I feel that it's going to be a burden is that the rush to complete the syllabus. The rush is always there. Schools with teacher shortages across Lagos states, schools with overcrowded classrooms or inadequate learning materials may rush through the curriculum to meet the official closing dates. And now this can now reduce what we call quality of teaching and limit learners' understanding. I also want to add that the widening inequality is like a parallel line that can never meet. Now, what am I trying to say? Now, well-funded schools can easily adapt because they have better infrastructure, they have more teachers, they have digital learning platform, they have structured lesson plans. So by contrast, underfunded schools may struggle to keep pace potentially with the widening achievement gap. So I believe that there are a lot of things. There will be pressure on teachers, so a lot of pressures, and there will also be challenges for schools affected by this local disruption. So they are going to be long-term, burdens, long-term burdens that we cannot even discuss at a go.
Now, for these schools that will be totally affected, what do you think the government can do to mitigate their position? Because the moment they are affected, the students are also affected in the mix. Now, looking at the elaborate view of all of this, what can be done by the government to mitigate this lacuna that this decision will create?
All right, many things. So to ensure the harmonized academic calendar succeed, the Lagos State government should complete or complement the policy with targeted support for schools that lack adequate resources. And I'm going to give a few practical interventions because sometimes, the other time we discuss policy in Nigeria, I'm always of the opinion that our policies are always not in sync. And when I mean not in sync, I mean no harm to the Lagos State government or to the federal government. But I'm saying that as a policy writer and as an educator, I believe that our policy should consider the people at the lowest, people that are going to be affected when they bring out this policy. So what are we trying to say? So what can the government do? The first is increase funding of public schools. The other time we discussed that according to the UNESCO standard, schools education is not really funded in Nigeria based on the standard of UNESCO. So increase funding for public schools. So what I'm trying to say is that they should allocate more resources for teaching materials, classroom repairs, furniture, laboratories, and digital learning. All of these things are expensive to do. Two is that they can provide grants for low-cost private schools, which I know that it may be difficult for the government to do, but I'm saying this even practically to the governor, the current governor of Lagos State, which is Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. If we truly want to harmonize school calendars, we want public and private schools to operate the same school calendars, we need to increase funding for public schools first, provide grants for low-cost private schools, because there are so many low-cost private schools where we have parents who are struggling to even pay 10,000 naira, 5,000 naira for their children's school fees. So
Right.
rather than blanket subsidies, offer what I call competitive grants to this low interest education loan can also be rescue the situation. Now, the third is that you can also recruit and train more teachers. There are no teachers in our private schools. We only have SS3 students who are not really qualified. And then we have chunks of unqualified teachers in these so-called low-cost private schools. So the government should recruit more teachers. And another thing is that they should also allow limited flexibility in exceptional cases, because these local schools you are talking about, they are prone to floods, they are prone to security challenges, they are prone to unforeseen disruptions. So disruptions are what will hamper the academic calendar. So the next is that I believe that we can also strengthen curriculum support, develop standard scheme of work, lesson plans, assessment guides to help schools complete the curriculum, and then expand digital learning. AI is taking over the world, and the government also can provide access to online learning platforms and digital resources for schools, and then engage stakeholders continuously. I'm always of the opinion that the more we engage, the more we dialogue with private schools, teachers, unions, parents, education experts, the less we have when it comes to implementation and the challenges that define each policies that our government bring to us.
All right, then. Well, because we're pressed for time, I mean, there's so much to ask you, and I wanted to find out from your perspective. And of course, you did mention it earlier, the part of curriculum support, which again is a major conversation. And of course, you would agree with me that there is a very large gap between the private schools and the public schools when it comes to curriculum and, of course, what they teach as well. But on the part of AI enhancement, do you think that the government is even going to do enough in that regards, even though you mentioned that as a solution to all of the bottlenecks that would be experienced with these developments from the state government? Then, before I let you go, what do you think made Lagos State decide this just for herself alone and not a federal thing?
I don't get the last question clearly. I want to get that question clearly.
Should what Lagos has taken in now, should it become a federal decision rather than just a state decision? And then would that also create major gaps between the education sector in Nigeria?
Thank you. This is $1 million question. Let me start by saying that it's $1 million question. Now, so for me, a harmonized school calendar should not automatically become a federal policy, but it is worth considering a national framework with room for state flexibility. And why? You know, we always model Lagos State's education structure or system is more like a model for so many states in Nigeria. Lagos is the center of excellence, and Lagos remains a model. But when it comes to this current policy, I believe that a federal mandate may not work. See, Nigeria's education system is decentralized. Basic education is largely managed by state governments, and each state faces what I call different stakes or different realities. There is climate and seasonal disruptions. There is security challenges differ across regions. There is culture and religious holidays that are not even uniform. And states have what we call different capacities and funding levels. So a single nationwide calendar could therefore be impracticable. But I feel that what the federal government can do is, instead of imposing one calendar, the federal Minister of Education could set a minimum number of instructional days for all schools, develop what I call national guidelines for school calendars, then ensure states calendars are aligned with major national examinations such as WAEC, NECO, NAPTEP, and then they can also encourage what I call, they can encourage states to consult stakeholders before approving these calendars.
All right then. Because of our time,
Yes.
really, thank you so very much, Mr. Folaranmi Ajayi, an educationist and also a policy maker, particularly when it comes to education. Thank you so very much for your time on the Media News Analysis segment.
Thanks to you. To enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. We'll take a very short break right now. When we return, more stories in business, sports, and entertainment will be up next. Please stay.